Hey guys, this is Will at Third and Long. Welcome to my Week 9 AP Poll Top 25 predictions. Who's going to win, who's going to lose, and we'll also be trying to predict the scores as well and if they'll cover. So hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get started looking at Week 9 here. So starting out on Saturday at 12 p.m. on Fox, we have number 6 Oklahoma coming off of that really close win versus UCF, and they'll be playing 5-2 Kansas Jayhawks. So Oklahoma, they need to get the running game going. They still do not have a number 1 running back. Dillon Gabriel did not play the best last week, had a pick, but he is still a really good quarterback. He was in the Heisman consideration prior to that really sloppy win versus UCF. I think Oklahoma is going to rebound here. They still do have a very good defense. They are on the road. Look for Dillon Gabriel to play really well. Now, Kansas, they have been without their star quarterback, Daniels, but they've been making it work because they can run the ball and they will be at home with their new stadium. The spread here is 9.5 in the Sooners' favor. I do think Oklahoma is going to get the win. They're going to win 34-24, so they will rebound. Kansas will get a fourth quarter garbage touchdown. So Oklahoma wins 34-24, and they'll cover. The next game that we'll be looking at 3:30 p.m. on CBS, number 1 Georgia Bulldogs at 7-0 coming off the bye versus Florida at 5-2 also coming off the bye. So Georgia is 14.5-point favorites here. Brock Bowers is out for a few weeks. He's their primary weapon, so he will not be there. Georgia is not really a primary run team as of right now. Just like the Sooners, they have no running back number 1. Carson Beck has been playing better, though. He has been getting 300 yards the last couple of games. Georgia, everyone's all high off of what Graham Mertz did 2 weeks ago when he had like 350 yards passing. That's fine, but that was his first time actually throwing the ball downfield. Prior to that, he was only averaging like 3 yards per pass. That's pathetic. That's garbage. Florida has no chance here. Florida does not have a good defense. They do not have a good offense. If you want to look at their offense, I'd say they're more of a run-heavy offense. You're not going to run the ball down Georgia's throat. To beat the Georgia Bulldogs, you must be a vertical passing team, just like the Buckeyes were last year when they lit it up on Georgia's defense. So if you want to run right into their line, go ahead. That's a very physical team. They are going to manhandle you over 4 quarters. I do have Georgia winning 37-20 and covering that spread. The next game that we'll be looking at 3:30 on ABC, we have 5-2 BYU, who is actually a pretty decent team. They have a pretty decent offense, versus number 7 Texas at 6-1. So Quinn Ewers is probably out. He did hurt his arm last weekend. He was in a sling, so he won't be playing. But the Texas Longhorns still have Brooks. They still have Worthy, and Malik Murphy will be getting the start at quarterback. Will we see Manning? Probably not, but Murphy does have some playing time, and they do have a very loaded team on both sides of the ball. They should be able to somewhat try to rely on their defense to keep the game simple for Murphy. For BYU, like I said, they have a very good offense, and they have a very good passing and running offense. Do not overlook the Cougars here, especially with Quinn Ewers down. Texas is 17.5-point favorites here, so a pretty big spread for not having your starting quarterback. I think Texas will get the win, 34-24. They will just fail to cover. But Texas should be on upset alert. Do not overlook BYU here. Next game that we have at 3:30 p.m. on Fox, number 8 Oregon at 6-1 versus number 13 Utah at 6-1. So Utah keeps surprising. They just keep surviving, and they keep chugging on and going higher in the polls every single weekend. Ducks are 7-point favorites. Ducks must win here. They are still in line for the playoffs. If they win out, they can still get to the Pac-12 championship. They can still make the Final Four. Utah, Cam Rising, he will not be playing this year, so it is going to be Bryson Barnes. If he starts to stink, they'll just bring in Johnson. Utah does not have a good offense at all. They did play last week well versus USC, but everybody's offense looks good versus the Trojans. So prior to that, they were only averaging like 290 yards on offense. Oregon, just like Utah, is very physical. They are not the Trojans. You will not push them around at the line of scrimmage. But Utah does have a very good defense, a top 10 defense as of right now. Ducks 7-point favorites, but Oregon has Bo Nix. They have Irving. They have Franklin. This is a team on a mission to try to win out. They will get the win here, 31-20, and they will cover. The next game that we'll be looking at on 3:30 p.m. on ESPN, number 20 Duke at 5-2 versus number 18 Louisville at 6-1. So Louisville is coming off that bye week. They are 4-point favorites here. Louisville has a pretty good offense with Plummer, Jordan, Thrash. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and they do have a top 20 defense as of this game. Duke is coming off of a very close loss versus Florida State. Do not think that they were down 30-20. That game was close to the very end of the fourth quarter. Duke was actually winning. They were up, should have won the game. Riley Leonard is hobbled. He is a running quarterback, and he was not mobile, so that just kind of lets you know how things go. What I'm basing this game off of, with Louisville being 4-point favorites, is that Riley Leonard will be a little healthier and will be able to scramble more. They kept the game close versus Florida State. To me, they should be able to keep Louisville in. Louisville is not some all-struck team. People were all over them 3 weeks ago. That wasn't real. Yes, they beat Notre Dame, but Duke played Notre Dame close also. I think Duke is going to get the win here, 28-21. So they'll get the upset win, but I'm only basing this off of thinking that Riley Leonard should be healthier and should be able to run. If he cannot run, then Louisville will win the game. Next game we have at 12 p.m. on ABC, number 4 Florida State undefeated 7-0 versus Wake Forest at 4-3. Wake Forest has a very good offense. So just like that Boston College game, Florida State cannot live that Boston College game down because it was so awful. Everybody saw that happen. They cannot overlook anyone. Mike Norvell has a problem here. His team overlooks the competition they play every weekend. That's why they flip-flop so much. They have very sloppy games versus the good teams. They get up to play those games, but it seems like they can't get motivated to play these mediocre ACC teams. And that's what keeps ringing its head and keeps keeping them from being able to blow teams out. But Florida State is obviously the more talented team here. Travis, Benson, Coleman, they have a very good defense, a really good defensive line. So to me, they are 20-point favorites, massive spread. They will get the win 40-18, and they will cover. Next game we have at 12 p.m. on CBS, 2-5 Indiana Hoosiers at number 10 Penn State at 6-1. So Indiana, they're not good at all. They have no redeemable qualities at all. They stand absolutely zero chance. But Penn State is 32-point favorites. That's a massive spread versus an in-conference team, a team that did play Ohio State very close week 1. Number 10, Penn State, 6-1. So they're 32-point favorites here. Penn State came off of a really tough, close loss versus the Buckeyes last weekend. Penn State is definitely the more physical team. They will be out for blood. Just like Oregon, just like Texas, they still have the whole season in front of them here. They are still within striking distance of the Final Four. They have a top 5 defense. It's just their offense has no vertical weapons for Aller. This guy's still thrown no picks, but he has no primary deep threat weapon, and that's what's been holding back Penn State. But that won't matter versus Indiana because everybody will look like a legit weapon versus their defense. So Penn State will get the win here, 44-10, and they will cover. Next game is at 3:30 on NBC. We have 2-5 Pittsburgh versus number 14 at number 14 Notre Dame at 6-2. Notre Dame is a 20-point favorite here. That's a pretty big spread here versus Pitt. Pitt has a pretty decent offense. They did just beat Louisville 2 weeks ago, so do not overlook their offense, but their defense is complete dumpster fire. They're going to give up points. Notre Dame does not have a great offense, but Sam Hartman will be able to expose and take advantage of Pitt's defense. So even though they're 20-point favorites, Notre Dame will get the win 38-17, and they will cover. And they have a really good run game with Estime, and they're just going to beat up Pitt. Next game that we'll look at 4 p.m. on ESPN2, number 22 Tulane at 6-1 versus 4-3 Rice. So Tulane should be undefeated, should have had Pratt versus Ole Miss, but he was out and they lost that game very closely. But this is a pretty good offense with a pretty good defense. Rice, do not overlook Rice here. Jaden Daniels is that transfer quarterback from the Georgia Bulldogs. They have a very good offense. They can run the ball and they can definitely throw the ball this year. But I think Tulane should be able to control this game. They are 11.5-point favorites, and I have them winning 34-27. So they won't cover the spread, but they will get the win. Next game at 4 p.m. on the Pac-12 network, number 24 USC at 6-2 versus Cal at 3-4. Cal just got curb stomped here by Utah. Trojans, they're on a 2-game losing streak, have looked absolutely sloppy. Caleb Williams has not looked his best at all. He has looked his worst the last 2 weeks. I am expecting them to rebound. People are saying that Caleb Williams might want to sit out the whole season. That's not going to happen. This guy will play because of competitive nature. They are the way better team on offense. Their defense could not, in God's name, play any worse than they've played this season. So I think they'll have an okay game. Not a good game, because they're not capable of having a good game. But they will have a okay game, but the offense should get back on track. They will be looking to run the score up now because they want to get respect back. They are 11-point favorites. USC will win 45-24, and they will cover. Next game we have at 7 p.m. on FS1. We have number 5 Washington at 7-0 versus Stanford at 2-5. Washington is 26.5-point favorites. Massive spread here. These teams people have the wrong view of. So Washington barely beat Arizona State last weekend, 15-7. That will not ever happen again this season. They are going to rebound here. Do not think that that is the Washington Huskies. Stanford Cardinal, their last game, they came back and beat Colorado. That will not happen again. Their offense is not that good. I'm not buying it. Washington, Penix here is going to light it up. He will only play the first 3 quarters. They'll probably have 48 points by the end of the third. And then Stanford will get some garbage points. But I am looking for Washington to roll here. Spread is 26.5. They will win 48-20, and they will cover that spread. At 7 p.m. on CBS, we have number 19 Air Force undefeated. They may run the table this year because their schedule is pretty easy versus Colorado State at 3-4. Larrier did play last week at quarterback. He is banged up, but they played pretty dang good, and they have a pretty good defense. They are favored by 12 points. Colorado State, do not overlook them. They did play Colorado very close this year. They can definitely pass the ball, but I think that Air Force will get the win here. 28-20. So not high scoring because they run the triple option, so they'll drain so much clock. They will win, but they won't cover the spread. Next game that we'll be looking at 7 p.m. on ESPN, we have number 21 Tennessee Volunteers at 5-2 versus Kentucky at 5-2. Tennessee's 3.5-point favorites. They came off of that awful game versus Bama when they had the game first half up 20-7, and then they completely choke it away, and they get curb stomped and lose like 37-20, score 0 second half points. Tennessee, with Milton, they cannot throw the ball. It is obvious. They try to run the ball. You don't run the ball on Kentucky. You have to be able to at least complete a 5-yard pass. Joe Milton cannot do that. The guy can throw 60 yards, but he can't hit a barn at 5 yards. Kentucky, they are a run-heavy team. They will be looking to control the game clock, run the ball down Tennessee's throat. So I think they will do that. I think Kentucky will get the upset here, 28-24, and possibly move back into the top 25 next week. 7:30 p.m. on NBC, number 3, Ohio State, 7-0, coming off of that top 10 win versus Penn State. They are a defensive-heavy team. Kyle McCord is not getting better. He cannot throw the ball. They cannot run the ball. They have no offensive line, but they will shut you down on defense, and you cannot score 20 points versus them. Wisconsin, 5-2. Tanner Mordecai is out. They have their backup. They've only given up more than 20 points once this year. They have a very good defense, but without their starting quarterback, to me, they stand no chance here, but their defense should be able to keep the game close because the Buckeyes have no offense. Ohio State is 14.5-point favorites here. I think they will get the win. They will win 24-17. They will not cover. This will be a very close game because Wisconsin can run the ball. They just have a backup, and that's not going to work versus that Buckeyes defense. So they won't cover, but they get the win. Next game at 7:30 on the SEC Network, we have Vanderbilt 2-6 versus Ole Miss at 6-1. Ole Miss 25.5-point favorites here. So Ole Miss is rolling right now, beating the crap out of people. They have a very good run game. They have Quinton Junkins. They have Jackson Dart at quarterback who's running, throwing. Vanderbilt, they have absolutely nothing going on. They can't score. They have a really, really god-awful defense. So Ole Miss is 25.5-point favorites here. I think they will roll to an easy win. 41-20. I think it'll be like 41-14 in the fourth quarter, and Vandy will either get a touchdown or they'll just get 2 field goals in garbage time. But Ole Miss wins, they just don't cover. Next game at 7:30 p.m. on ABC, 4-3 Colorado versus number 23 UCLA Bruins at 5-2. UCLA 17-point favorites here. Bruins, very good defense. Dante Moore, very, very good freshman quarterback. Chip Kelly has this team rolling this year. They should be ranked higher than number 23. Colorado coming off the bye. They can score, but gosh, they can't stop anyone from scoring. They can't run the ball, but the Bruins are going to be all over them. Shedeur Sanders is one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the country, and he's going to be getting hit a lot this weekend. So I think the Bruins will cruise to a win 37-24, but they will fail to cover that spread. But it'll be a very good win. I just hope that Colorado can, somewhat try to keep it close. Next game at 8 p.m. on ACC Network, number 17, UNC, the Tar Heels 6-1 coming off of that just pathetic loss versus Virginia, versus 3-4 Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is garbage. I'm not buying that they beat Miami. That was a complete fluke. That will never happen again. UNC is 11.5-point favorites here. Look for May. Look for Hampton. Look for Jones. Look for Tez Walker. For all of them to get back on track and for that defense to play better. They are 11.5-point favorites. To me, they will beat the crap out of Georgia Tech. They want to prove themselves, and they want to start rising back up in the ACC. They'll win 38-24 and cover.
The next game that we're going to be looking at is the 10:30 game on ESPN, number 11, Oregon State at 6-1 versus 4-3 Arizona. Do not overlook Arizona here. They are a very good team with a pretty good defense, and they have a very good offense. They did beat Washington State last game. They beat the crap out of Washington State last game. They did barely lose to USC and barely lose to Washington. So they have played very competitive games. A lot of people are picking the upset here, thinking that it is possible that Arizona will upset Oregon State. Oregon State is favored 3.5 right now. They do have DJU. They do have a very good offense and a very good defense, and they run the ball really well. So they seek to control the clock. I have Oregon State pulling out a very close win and winning 31-27 and covering that spread.
Next is the new team coming into the top 25. James Madison at 7-0 at number 25 versus Old Dominion at 4-3. Both of these teams have very good offenses. They both throw the ball well. They both run the ball well. So James Madison is coming into this game as 19.5-point favorites. I definitely think that they will win this game, but this will be a close game. This will be a shootout. Like I said, both teams have very good offenses, and they are going to use them. But look at James Madison to get the win, 42-28. They will not cover, but they will get a very strong win here. And that's my breakdown of the AP Poll top 25 games for Week 9. Who will win? Who will lose? Hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks.